Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, setting the record straight about Facebook propaganda. Someone sent me a link the other day to an official Facebook junk science page about climate. The page is just full of gems for me to pick apart, including this one. Satellite images show deterioration of Antarctica glaciers that could lead to rising sea levels. The vast majority of Antarctica never gets above freezing, but according to climate experts, it's melting. Now let's look at what's actually going on with the southern polar ice cap. Here's an article from the Queenslander, July 21, 1932, A Warmer World. Some great world change is taking place on the Antarctic continent. Its glaciers are shrinking. The Great Ice Barrier, which fronts the continent with a wall of ice for 250 miles, has receded at least 30 miles since it was first seen and surveyed. Sir James Ross, who went out on the earliest Antarctic expedition of the 19th century, and those who followed him, left clear descriptions of this tremendous ice frontage and its position. It was a cliff 150 feet high and 1,000 feet thick, but now it appears to be continuing its century-long process of shrinking, and that process may have been going on for centuries. So the Ross Ice Shelf had been retreating for at least a century and had retreated 30 miles by 1932. Apparently, some of that 30-mile retreat occurred during the Little Ice Age prior to the year 1850. Here's an article from the Chicago Tribune dated January 9, 1977. Flood threat from polar ice. Ross Ice Shelf, Antarctica. A huge portion of the Antarctic ice mass appears to be collapsing into the sea, a catastrophe that could raise the levels of the oceans by almost 20 feet. We're doing about the most we can do to study the possible collapse of the West Ice Sheet, said Dr. Richard Cameron, National Science Foundation Program Manager for Glaciology. We're seeing the West Ice Sheet on its way out, said Cameron. It has nothing to do with a warmer climate, just the dynamics of unstable ice. So the Ross Ice Shelf has been retreating for well over a century. If it collapses, it will raise sea level by a large amount, and it has nothing to do with a warmer climate. In fact, around that time, the Chicago Tribune and the scientific community were worried about a new ice age. The armadillos are heading south. Ice age coming? Chilling thought for humanity. So let's look at that Facebook page again. Facebook and ABC News are blaming something which has been going on for centuries on your sport utility vehicle. They say it could lead to rising sea levels, which is exactly what the National Science Foundation said in 1977 during the Ice Age scare. But this story gets worse. In 2004, Gavin Schmidt, who now heads up NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies, said, during recent decades, surface temperatures decreased significantly over most of Antarctica. And in 2005, NASA published this map of Antarctica showing most of the continent cooling in blue. But that didn't suit the global warming agenda, so a few years later, NASA simply changed the colors from blue to red. If you want to scare people about Antarctica melting and floodwaters coming to drown them, red is a much better color. Facebook and ABC News want to scare people into believing that something they're doing is causing Antarctica to break up and ultimately is going to come kill them. What Facebook and ABC News are doing is propaganda and has nothing to do with science, but that's pretty typical for the press and social media in the year 2020. This kind of propaganda is awful, but it's also trivial to debunk, which makes Toto's job very easy. You can visit him and Kyrie on the web at realclimatescience.com.